The internet is broken. Business models and site design are entirely geared toward advertising and not the reader. On today's internet, advertisements are distracting, invasive, and overwhelming. In Den, the primary objective is quality content. Instead of ads, you may occasionally see a boosted post where a user has risked value to increase its visibility. Just like any other post, you can upvote or downvote to help evaluate the relevance to your community. The more engagement a boosted post gets, the less the booster pays. Depending on the evaluation process, a booster can get up to 85% of their money back, if the post is well targeted and engaging. In Den, quality content is the primary objective.
Hello and welcome to World Blockchain Roundtable. I am your host, John, aka T Swift or Die, and today we are going to be talking about using blockchain to help the climate and the planet. But first, let me introduce our hosts and our panel and our guests today. Starting with always, it seems like I have Distant, aka Dave, here.
Yo.
You might know him from Coffee with Ben or every other episode of World Blockchain Roundtable, Den.Social calls, or wherever you find him on the internet. And we've also got Litecoin Lisa here as well. You know her from the Mighty Layer and her YouTube channel. Anything else? And you can also join her on 421 and 422.
I'm forcing you to say
cool.
it.
I love it. Yeah.
Promoting my event. I'm being strategic.
Please, I'm gonna start doing that too. Just putting little things in there. And then we have Greg from Rivet, a cypherpunk. And you can see him talking to people. Great. Yeah, I'm glad to have you all here. I'm excited for today's topic, and we have a little bit of a smaller group today, which is awesome. We can really kind of like dive into stuff and have some fun. Before we get into today's topic, also, I want to give out a lot from last week and a couple updates. So last week, each host from last week is going to receive 111 lot. Each topic contributor from last week is receiving 55 lot. Last week's theme was fighting fraud and cryptocurrency. Cryptocurrency industry, which was introduced by Darox, who's going to receive 55 lot for that. And remember, these ownerships come with passive and perpetual income, free edits, and governance votes. Great. And then
racking them up.
Yeah, and then we got a little bit more stuff that happened too. The World Blockchain Roundtable DAO had some votes. Great, and you got it right there. I love it. I was approved and now have to continue to be the master of ceremonies for every single World Blockchain Roundtable going forward the rest of my life. They put a lot. There was a lot that went into this. So it passed by a nice slim margin there, but luckily nobody denied it, so that's nice. Yay! So I'm the permanent host. We changed
unanimous,
the order.
Yeah. Ish.
You what?
It was 48% unanimous.
Yeah, it's a
nobody
weird
else voted.
Like, only 12. Yeah, just like it was like, oh, we've reached our over 50%. I don't need to show up anymore. It was great. Don't vote unless you have to. It's awesome. Great. Also, we changed the order of the shows to match U.S. tax week. So I believe we switched the one that's like blockchain and taxes or something like that with Game Show 2.0. There it is, right in front of my face. Change the order of taxes to week 2 and Game Show to 2.0 to week 3. So I have one extra week to be prepared for it. I'm excited. And then the last one, we let me post it. How did this make it to this? I wasn't able to post a World Blockchain Roundtable, so now I can.
There was a previous DAO decision to let all the hosts post. The host
you
post
should have been allowed to do that through that.
It's just I just love the fact that there was a vote to announce
Yeah.
that I'm allowed to post in this like forum with these people, and I'm
It's
the one hosting the show
Yeah.
and announcing the fact that I'm now allowed to be a
Look
part
at
of this
me.
meeting.
It's nuanced, but the way that it works because of how Den is built is that actually changes the permissions for your
Mhm.
account, so that the DAO can, in a decentralized fashion, vote on people's permissions in that layer, which is kind of a neat thing. Everybody can vote and say shut this person up, or they can say no, let this person speak if it is a thing that they need, a decision that needs to be made. So that's why that's an extra vote in there.
I go ahead, Greg.
Oh, I was saying the neat thing about it is like the sky's the limit for that kind of, as Den gets more capabilities, you might imagine like who can pin posts could be a thing that could come up later. Like that's you can really break down permissions by vote and make it so that nobody feels like they're getting at the very least told what they have to have, as opposed to that they have a say in what they get. So, which is cool.
It's cool, and then I can also just put up weird little votes for whatever I want. It'll be fun. I created some clips from some previous shows that we did, and I went to put them in the layer and realized I couldn't. So now I can. But you can also check those out on the Den layer if you want to check that, see those too. Great. And did I hit everything? Okay, yeah, and great. Now we're going to move into the theme for this week. The theme for this week is using blockchain to help the climate/planet. And this was nominated by me. I think I was in like a brainstorming session where I just threw out like 7 ideas and 3 of them got picked. So that was cool. Great. So we're going to kick things off and just go straight into questions today. And let's take a look at the first question that we have. So our first question comes from Derox, who's making 55 lot from posing last week's topic. How much energy is consumed by the banking system compared to the energy used to mine Bitcoin? And a lot of people wanted to hear the answer of this, and I feel like this is probably something we could just Google. But
I think
we have right here.
someone did. Yeah.
We've gone and done that for you. And I guess it's kind of in the headline, uses at least 56 times more energy than Bitcoin. So I kind of want to just talk about the topic. We don't need to get into like the specific numbers and things like that, but really like kind of what those implications mean going forward. Dave, you want to go ahead and kick this topic off for us?
Yeah, for sure, man. So I guess the answer is sort of right there. There's different ways to calculate it, and you'll see dramatically different calculations depending on the point someone's trying to make in different like news outlets and stuff like that. I've seen a bunch of numbers. But the important thing to me is that I don't think a lot of people are looking at that in the right way, I guess, especially a lot of people that either don't support Bitcoin or are trying to make points against proof of work, for example. Proof of work versus proof of stake is still a debate somehow. But I think the right way to look at it is that Bitcoin is meant to replace the banking system. It isn't meant to like exist alongside of it. It's meant as an alternative. So if you frame it like that, okay, Bitcoin uses a lot of energy by design, right? But it uses far less energy than the banking system that we have right now. So that's a framing to keep in mind. And I also wanted to point out one quick other thing before we rotate through and get other opinions on this. But the idea of energy conservation itself is a good one, right? We shouldn't be wasteful in general as people. But the source of that energy, I think, should be the focus more than the reduction of energy consumption. And in my opinion, if we need more energy to do things for human progress, if we need more energy to do those things, we've got new ways to produce that energy that should be just fine with anybody who's concerned about the overuse or the overconsumption of energy, of natural resources and burning oil and stuff like that. You don't necessarily have to get the energy from that place. So I think that the debate should be more squarely focused on, hey, if a bunch of people have a problem burning coal and oil, great, let's use something different that's renewable and ultimately cheaper and more sustainable. Fine, right? So I'm sort of an energy use maximalist, for lack of a better word. It's just a matter of where you get the energy from. So there's my thoughts on that.
Cool.
Go ahead, Greg. It seems like you want to jump in on here. Yeah,
I have a couple things I wanted to make sure that we also address, because when you think about Bitcoin's energy use versus the banking system, or any proof of work mining system versus the banking system, the popular mistake that media likes to make, probably intentionally, if we're being completely honest with ourselves, right, is that, okay, here we are now. What happens if it goes up to everybody using it instead of the banking system? Does the energy go up at a 1-to-1 ratio? Are we going to see that, this relatively niche thing,
Very good point, yeah.
Cranks up the energy use for every one transaction? That's actually not how it works. Right now, what we're seeing is Bitcoin at about peak energy use. To add more capacity to the network, you don't actually have to use that much more energy. And over time, as the block rewards reduce, the amount of reward you get for burning energy to secure the network actually goes down. So Bitcoin over time will become more efficient than it is now, as opposed to where it is today, right? And like the other point is probably worth making is what Dave was talking about with the energy sources, right? Whether or not you believe that we can burn enough fossil fuels to change the climate, right? We have in front of us no need to ask that question, right? We have the ability to push forward with things like was Lawrence Livermore Labs, right, that had the breakthrough with reaching unity with a fusion ignition on a laser-based system, something like that. The amount of money we spend on trying to get the grid to work with batteries and variable renewables may not be the best use of our money, and so we got to be careful to not over focus in this idea that ultimately the planet's going to run out of stuff. Right? That's true. It's going to run out of stuff. We're nowhere near that, but we need to focus on getting to a place where it doesn't matter, and really pursuing fusion, I think, is going to be a really big part of that. Last point that I want to make: none of the Bitcoin miners are involved in the need to smelt any metals or grow cotton, which you have to do to have any of the paper and metal fiat currency that's floating around. So that they're not running smelters, which is, I think, an environmental win, even when we're not talking about carbon gas. We should be careful to equate all pollutants, because some are worse than others, and strip mining the earth for metals is probably a bad way to help the planet. So we probably should replace the banking system with something that doesn't require paper or cotton paper or whatever the heck it is.
They don't really use that now.
Yeah,
they're digital now.
Yeah,
there's I can't remember, is it less than 10% of the supply of what people would call money is actually in fiat paper currency right now. Yeah. So, I mean, no one's really using that, I don't think.
Indeed.
I think everybody's forgetting the law of thermodynamics, is that energy cannot be created or destroyed. So they're talking about using up things that the earth creates. Fuels underground, oil and is not made from dinosaurs. I mean, I think we're all pretty clear on all of that.
No, mostly ferns, I think, right?
Yeah, I think
there you go. Actually, ferns. But I think all of us, of course, are looking at Bitcoin being, I don't know. I just don't know that using less energy is like that big of a flag to raise. I think that's been like a distraction. That's been a narrative. That's been the Greta Thunberg, waving a flag over here. If energy can never be created or destroyed, then we're using it and it's transferring its form and going somewhere else to be useful and to be turned into energy being used somewhere else. So I just think it's a real distraction.
Yeah. Well, Lisa, what would you focus on? Like, what do you think because I think the big topic of like, everybody wants a good, clean environment. We don't want to destroy the earth. Where should our energy?
So we're talking about clean environment Or are we talking about
talking about like
they're talking about
generally
energy
planetary
use.
health? Like, what should we do to make ourselves better about taking care of the world that we want to live in? Like,
Have
what's really the
accountability. Put that stuff on blockchain and have accountability. Whether it's, I mean, that could go so many different ways and so many things, whether it's all these train derailments, that could be cleaned up through blockchain, whether it's accountability of safety measures, weights of things, times of things. I mean, it could never end if it was accountable, and then people could see it. Right now everything's hidden, and nobody can see it. Everything's a confidentiality issue, and there's no transparency, and because of that no one's held accountable, and I think that's the biggest issue for
I think we're
a clean environment.
I think we're going to touch on that later too, talking about how blockchain is really, it's going to make it so that like you can't hide what you're doing. And that's going to be a big part of it, right? And that was kind of like my question that I have is like, okay, is this the fact that like the amount of energy that banking or Bitcoin is using, are those really the big things that are those like the biggest issues, or are those, like Lisa said, just kind of distractions? Like,
yeah,
everybody's like trying to stop using plastic bags. Well, you know what? If we went after the big polluters, then like the little day-to-day things we do won't really matter as much.
Right. And that's a really good point, John. Actually, just to add one more thing to the conversation, is these are normative debates, right? This is like whether or not we're okay with energy being used for this sort of thing, right? They like to like draw this weird comparison to the GDP of countries, energy use of countries, and a proof of work blockchain. It's irrelevant when you look at the fact that they're just trying to make a point that says we don't consider this valuable energy use at all, right? It's always a canard that critics put out there to say that like we just disapprove of anybody using any energy on this.
Yeah, that is kind of a recent question, isn't it? Because like it wasn't all like you used to be able to use energy for whatever you could invent. Yeah, here's some electricity. It's metered. You pay for it. You use it.
Right.
There you go.
I wonder what the energy usage of pornography is. Like,
really, it's not
if you calculate it out, right?
Oh my God, I love that argument.
It's not the usage of energy, right? It's what they're really, what they should be, or what we're talking about is pollution, or the damage that it's doing to the earth, our the ground, the poisoning that we're seeing in the waters, all that kind of stuff. Like that's the kind of stuff that should be measured, not how much energy you use. It's how much destruction are you doing. And that's where they're, pointing one direction instead of the other.
Yeah, false equivalence between the two, I think. Yeah, you're right.
Perfect. Well, let's move on to the next question.
I
liked how we answered that one.
Can I actually do a quick
Oh
I know,
God,
man.
Dave, you did this to me. All right,
I
what do you
know.
got?
I know.
Tell us about the lakes and rivers. Okay.
No, man. I just want to point out, and I guess this is just something I do. I take notes while other people are talking, and I just want to emphasize a couple of things. One was what Greg said about the way that people think about transactions. I hadn't thought about it until he said it, but yeah, there's a lot of news reports out there and things that people believe about how much energy like a transaction uses. It's not true. A transaction doesn't use energy. A block uses energy, and you can shove a bunch of transactions in there, so it scales up. So I just wanted to point that out. And with what Lisa said, I just wanted to agree with her where I thought maybe I wouldn't have before. Because it is the case that we have a limitation of energy recapture, right? If you're transforming something into thermal energy to get useful work out of it, the waste comes from not having the technology to recapture it in some way. That's where some of it comes from. And so that kind of goes, it's just cool because I thought I was going to disagree with Lisa, but I actually agree. I think that we should focus on technology and improving the way that we use the energy. And then the accountability thing is important too. When I was in the Navy, we had this concept called gun decking, where you would just fill in the boxes and say you did something maintenance wise when you didn't, right? And it would cause issues because if you don't do your maintenance, even though you say you do, looks great on paper, but then something explodes down the road and a bunch of people get hurt. And that's of like, if you can reduce that frequency with the train derailments thing that Lisa was talking about. That's something directly that blockchain can be applied to.
Right. Well,
so I just thought those were important points, and I wanted to derail John long enough to get him out.
I do want to derail a
It's
little bit
fine.
further
We're
on
20
that
minutes
one.
into this show, and we've done one question.
Good.
I think I got through the opening is the quickest I've ever done it. Yeah. Which I love, which lets us kind of go back and forth more. So yeah, let's take a look at the next one. And a lot of these like topics we bring up are going to bleed into other questions. So that's why if I can move to the next question, you're not going to miss out on what you get to say.
Okay. Noted.
Great. Token. Yeah. Write it down in your notes.
Noted.
Great topic. This one's from Derox as well. Tokenization or the NFT of a common use product such as refrigerators, washing machines, cars, etc., as an inspiration for extending their lifetime, stopping the tendency to break down after the warranty period expires. I thought this was a really interesting idea. And yeah, how can we make it so that the products that we're putting out don't break in 2 years, so you have to go buy a new phone?
They're already doing this at Home Depot or Lowe's. I can't remember which one. Maybe it's both. That you purchase a tool, and then with it comes an NFT that turns on the tool. And so you could have it. So right now they design, like he's saying, they design refrigerators, washing machines. They design it to break in a couple of years because they want you to buy another one. They don't want stuff to last like those old refrigerators from the 50s that you can still find in some people's barns that still work. And so the idea, I think this is a great idea, and this is what he's talking about. A part of it is a great idea in that it probably, for the environment, it would help things, it would help companies be incentivized to make things last longer because you would buy a subscription to the item that you bought. At the same time, freedom lovers are like, it's never really yours, because it's like buying a house and paying it off. If you don't pay your taxes every year, it's not your house. They'll come and kick you out. So there's a double-edged sword there. I guess one's, if we're talking about for the earth, I don't like to call it climate. I think that's crap. But for the earth, as far as not having extra things in landfills or whatever, extending the life of things, I think that's a great idea. But the freedom part of me goes, if I bought it, it should run.
Yeah. I'm a little confused by how what he means by the tokenization of common use products.
I'd love to talk about that a little bit, actually.
Yeah, please.
So really the catch here is when you have something that's on chain, like a piece of digital art, right? Imagine putting something in that. Like, what if you just laser etched a QR code into the side of a washer or a dryer, right? And then you took that same QR code and you tokenized it at the time of manufacture. You've essentially made it so that machine itself is connected intrinsically in its construction to a blockchain at that point. So you have a tokenized washing machine, right? Now, that's laser etching the QR code onto the side isn't as far as you could go. You can take like a really secure, sort of like, if you've heard of Apple's secure enclave for their iPhones, where there's like this encrypted portion of the chip that only you can access with only your passcode kind of thing. You can do that in the internals of washing machine electronics and make it so that the machine itself is the only thing that custodies its own keys, right? So that nobody can get in there and manipulate information about how it's operating except for the machine in the operation of itself as it goes, right? So imagine integrating that then with a blockchain, right? So you can have it put its own operational statistics onto a blockchain in a way that you can trust is true, right? Because if you can put the information on there and know that the information is correct when it goes on, you can't manipulate it after it's on blockchain. So it allows you to make certain assumptions about these machines, about how they're being used, about how long they last, that you wouldn't be able to make with the way we currently run things, because we don't know how consumers are using their things, right? Like, if someone's kicking their washing machine down the stairs before they run it every time, it's going to last like one cycle. But But if you put the right sensors in a machine and then secure the runtime from manipulation externally by any other factor than its proper use, right? You can do stuff like like track how many loads it's run between repairs and things like that. You could even go so far as like if you wanted to get really fancy with the spices, like did they put in too much soap? Did they put in not enough soap? These sorts of things can be trackable in a way that's not doesn't require any human being to do something that they would otherwise not be inclined to do. Right.
So just because I'm tracking these metrics doesn't mean that my product is going to be any better, right? We've all logged onto our computers and been asked, it's like, would you like to send data about crashes and whatever else to the consumer? And I'm going to be honest, I don't think Windows has gotten better because of that. And I don't think I don't think my Mac crashes any less. And I don't think I have any less problems with my iPhone.
No, but you have no privacy.
Yeah.
With
so
if you trust a development team though, like that does help them, right? Like big time.
Yeah, but it's not incentivizing them to actually get rid of the crashes. They're like, oh great, this is more information, but their utilities and stuff are still going towards R&D for new products and not for fixing what we have.
And that's why you have to have incentive systems that go along with the blockchain. A blockchain is a tool, right? Like the way that you use that data has to be structured in a way that incentivizes people to be better about how they improve the product, right? I'm also a believer in free market systems kind of managing themselves when people have the ability to discern, right? I think one of the biggest barriers to appliances getting better is the fact that we now have a bureaucracy in charge of it that starts with the assumption that all consumers want is cheaper, cheaper, cheaper. When in fact, actually what we want is better, better, better. And better is defined by whatever any individual wants to be better in a thing. And in the aggregate, that's what gives us like supply and demand in markets, right? We've broken that with appliances. And the situation has gotten so bad that the manufacturers are now essentially working in sort of, I don't want to say collusion, but in coherence with the EPA to make sure that the regulations stay the same, because it helps them keep competitors out. If all they have to do is make it run cheaper, 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 then it doesn't really matter if consumers hate your washing machine after 5 years, because the one that works better is now illegal, right?
But that's where the subscription thing that like Lowe's, Home Depot is doing, they're incentivized to make their device or tool work better and longer, because that's keeps you in that subscription, because then you keep buying just the NFT to keep using this one hammer, drill, whatever.
Become an annoyance, not a benefit.
So Dave, all right. So is there a way that this could actually that tokenizing these products could actually make it so that they don't break down? Because it sounds like we kind of could just keep putting band-aids on things and people and we're really not getting it what we want as a product, even though I don't know, people want things to not break down, but they also want the new cool thing. Does that make sense? So, yeah.
Yep. So what Greg said is totally true. Corporations have been colluding to make products break after a while since the invention of the light bulb. If you just there's a jumping off point.
It's not precisely what I've said.
Okay. Well,
I think that market incentives have not favored durability.
I apologize for putting that on you, Greg. Sorry. I will say, not Greg, I will say that the collusion among corporations to make things break after a while has at least been going on and since the invention of the light bulb. Because there's literally a group of people that got together that said, hey, let's make sure that none of us make one that lasts forever, because then we can't sell light bulbs anymore. So that's a thing. And that's probably a different thing than what the question's asking about, but it's worth mentioning. Right now I don't know if it's just the UK or if it's the European Union, there's legislation that's like a right to repair kind of thing that's being fielded. And it calls for a marketplace where device owners can be matched, like a matchmaking service. They can be matched with reputable repair technicians to fix their phone, to fix their appliance, to fix their thing, right? And it would make rules saying that manufacturers cannot design things in a way that aren't fixable, and that they have to help repair it if the repair is cheaper than replacing the device, right? So that is a conversation that's going on just overall. And I think that NFTs, there's two sides to that. I kind of sympathize with, like, in chat, and there's someone who was talking about basically agreeing with Lisa with like the freedom loving, don't track me type of opinion. And that's valid. It's like a Judge Dredd type of situation where your tool is only usable by the person who purchased it and paid for it. And it might work perfectly well, but if you're not the one that paid for it, you got to go buy another one because your NFT doesn't match your identity and stuff, right? That's sort of like the dystopian way that can go. But I think it would be handy as hell to be able to track an item with an NFT that's associated with that physical item in a way that doesn't pin it to an identity. It just literally tracks just the item, where you can look at a marketplace, or you can look up your own token that corresponds to your washing machine on some marketplace that does track the usage of the machine, but does not correlate that with an identity. So it tracks the usage of the machine, and it can tell you, hey, here's, like, on one hand, if you are the person who owns the machine, you can say, hey, are there any issues? Do I need any checkups? Is there maintenance recommended? Because preventative maintenance does absolutely extend the life of an appliance. That's a thing that people typically don't do until it breaks and it's catastrophic and they got to pay a bunch of money.
Right.
So they can help there. And on the other side of that, it can help from the technician's point of view in a marketplace to say, maybe the technician themselves have a reputation that's based on a token kind of thing without an identity attached. Maybe it's the same sort of thing. And they can say, they can look up, hey, where's all the machines within my service radius that could use some help? Maybe I'll, try to go out and fix them. The same way that a person can say, hey, where's the technicians around with a good reputation that can come fix my machine? So I think it can help with that matchmaking service that either the EU or the UK wants. And it can make it, where there isn't a database for someone on the dark web to sell, to hack into, and that's the last thing is, like, it's a security feature, and it's like a data safety feature where if you're not making a honeypot for hackers to break into and steal all the personal information, for like identity theft and stuff like that, then it's just inherently a safer marketplace to operate in. Right. That's how I see that working out.
Well, and just to tack onto that real quick, I think that maybe one of the things that people ought to consider is whether it's an NFT or a fungible token, right? Because a fungible token would be a really great, like, instead of having an NFT that records operational statistics, maybe we have a proof of purpose mining system that generates a token that demonstrates each of these stats, like for the washing machine motor of a particular model, it has a proof of run system, a proof of load run that generates a new batch of tokens every time a load is run. And we can actually see then this operational data in a way that can't be re-aggregated to a source once it's been mixed. That might actually be a way to preserve privacy while getting the benefit.
Great. Yeah, and with no, that's fine. I was thinking about the secondary markets. You could also know when you're buying something used, not from the manufacturer, like a Carfax report or something. You could be like, okay, what's this machine been through before I pay for it?
Right, a giant odometer that's specific to its different parts, right?
So I wanted to Hyperion Frequency said something that kind of was making me, that had something to do with something I was thinking about. Dave, you mentioned earlier, I don't think that's the question there. It was the light bulb lasting forever, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we're kind of, this question right now is saying, how can we make it so our products last longer and aren't created to just break? And then Dave, you're like, well, back when the light bulb was invented, we wanted to make a product that wouldn't just break, and then we didn't. So one, is this even a possible thing? Is there something about our society and our culture where, like, we need things to break so we can make new ones? And if things last forever, like, it's just going to be an issue. And like, blockchain isn't going to fix our social dynamics with each other. So really, we're trying to fix something that nobody wants actually fixed. And Hyperion Frequency said this in the chat, and I want to bring it up. Technology is essentially an extension of ourselves. If there are issues we need to work on, updating ourselves, our thoughts, our tech, our culture, is that really what we actually should be talking about?
This is, John,
That
I
is
want
what
to
I was
jump
talking
in
about.
here real quick, because like this is a really important one for me, and I think it's really important for everybody. We can't have mandates. We can't force people. We have to let people decide, right? If we want to build things that work for longer, that last for longer, then people should be allowed to start a business and make that, right? The question is, are we going to permit it right now?
And are they
We ought to have
incentivized to do
more-
so? Because if they're not incentivized to make the thing that lasts longer, that's why I was talking about the NFT, the subscription thing. That's the
Right.
only way they're incentivized to make something that lasts longer,
Well,
is if they can keep selling you a subscription.
Well, it'll permit a company to create an incentive structure that's marketable, right? And that's the trick. Is if we can afford to run a company that will make things last longer, then someone will offer it on the market, and if it's popular, people will buy it. And if it's not popular, people won't. And I think we need to leave it at that. Otherwise, we risk, forcing onto people a solution that they don't want.
So you're assuming that we're in a real free market system.
And no, I'm assuming we're not in a free market
system.
Well,
you're assuming that. You're assuming that. I don't know, that we need to let people make up their minds for themselves. Well, It's hard to let people make up their minds for themselves when there's multi-million-dollar marketing budgets being thrown at them and all these other things.
Right? I mean, that doesn't force any. The only thing that forces anybody is to point a gun at them and say they have to not make this. Right?
It alters people's perception of reality, which directly influences their decision-making logic.
Right. But it's not like they're going to come to your house and shoot you if you don't buy their thing. Right.
I'm saying it's not helpful. I'm saying we got people to smoke a lot of cigarettes because we made cool commercials.
I'm with you, but what I'm saying is it doesn't add anything positive to the equation to say we're going to add another force over here with guns to stop you from doing X, Y, or Z. That doesn't make market dynamics work better. It tends to break them.
So here's my question on top of that, though. How many times have we maybe not we as the four of us, but as a collective culture society, how many times have we bought a new phone because we wanted a new phone, not because our phone currently doesn't work or provide the services we need, right?
I buy a new one every year.
Exactly.
On purpose. I would be pissed if somebody tried to stop me.
Yeah. So, and that's not even us being forced to do something. That's us making a choice to go get the new technology thing.
Good ideas don't require force.
Yeah, well, I don't know if it's always a good idea for everybody to do this. There's some people that probably could use a Nokia and just keep it there.
Popular ideas don't require force.
So I think the idea of things break, the fact that my washing machine breaks every 5-10 years, whatever it is, right? When the old ones used to work just fine. It's also so that we can get that new technology out there, right? Technology changes every 6 months, really, right? There's something new and exciting coming out every 6 months.
Yeah,
if my thing isn't breaking, then I have no reason to go buy the new thing. But do I even care if my thing broke? Because I still want the new thing.
Well, right now I want the old thing, right? I want to go find somebody who's selling a toilet they made in the 50s that didn't have a permanent low flow restrictor on it. I want to go buy a 1940s washing machine that fills to the brim and uses old school soap with phosphates, so they work better.
The refrigerators, yeah, for sure.
It is the case. Now, this isn't. I don't know if I'm for or against it or whatever, but just pointing out that it is the case that because of that trend of people always wanting the latest and greatest and the new thing, even if it's not broken, that kind of thing. You have I even was talking to somebody in city government not too long ago, and they were talking about how in my city, the infrastructure was designed around a predicted growth model. And so we would need, this much of an increase in energy capacity, for example, on the grid to support that growth because we're seeing a lot of growth. And what wasn't really taken into account and what ended up happening was that the energy, even though the growth did occur and is still happening, the adoption and the buying of new stuff, appliances and light bulbs and LED light bulbs and energy conservation stuff, that stuff is being adopted and people are buying new things. And so what they saw was a plateau of energy consumption, even with a growth of new stuff being installed on the infrastructure. And I think that's at least interesting because there is that dynamic as well.
Yeah, that's true.
All right. So let's move on to the next question. Love it. Amanda's reading my mind. Can blockchain help improve conservation efforts for natural resources such as forests and wildlife? And we kind of talked about this earlier. So I'd love to we have like a few more questions to get through as well, and we're running out of time. So I'd love like some like quick thoughts on these as well.
Mm-hmm.
I think Lisa, do you want to start with this one? You're muted. I'm sorry.
Sorry, my husband's decided to mow the lawn this morning outside my office. I apologize. I have a friend from Brazil, and she has some childhood friends that are now biologists and doing all this stuff, and they are actually blockchaining the resources of the Amazon in Brazil. And I'll mute myself again because I don't know if you can hear the.
We can't.
Not so bad at all.
Thank God, because it's terrible over here. Okay. He's in so much trouble. Anyway, so they're blockchaining like the resources of the Amazon. This was happening in like 2018, 2019. She was talking with this group of friends, and she's like, oh, what are you guys doing? She's like, oh, well, we're like looking at all the resources in Brazil, natural resources in the, in our country. And then she asked her, she said, well, how are you storing that? Is that, ledger? Is it? And she said, oh no, we're putting it on blockchain. And so if you think about that, those are the resources of a nation. And when we go into this reevaluation of the currency that I think we're all facing, each nation could really look at all of their assets, not just, oh, we have oil, or, oh, we have gold, or, oh, we have silver, but this is our nation's resources and natural resources, including it on that.
This sounds like the most complicated game of Risk, and I love it. Greg, real quick, what do you think about
I think that right now what our biggest challenge is overcoming this idea that we can bottle reality and monitor it in a way that allows us to control it. And really the most important thing that we ought to be doing is using blockchain to monitor our intervention efforts in resource management, to make sure that they're actually giving us a bang for our buck and not just wasting everybody's money. Because I think there's a lot of stuff that we do, like fires in California, for example. The way that they manage controlled burns is so poor. That they allow undergrowth to build up, and it causes these bad fire years to happen. And then they do things like blame drought or blame campers. But in reality, they ought to be pointing the finger squarely at themselves because they don't allow natural burn processes to take place, and it creates this buildup. If we actually had blockchain data to prove that, they wouldn't be able to stand up and say, well, and point the other finger, right? Like blockchains can make it so that the people who claim to have the right answer have to prove it. And I think that's what we can do to help the situation.
I think that's been like kind of a theme going through this is blockchains really, when it comes to this, is going to be like accountability and transparency.
Yeah.
Dave, how do we protect the forests of Florida and keep Nestle out of our springs?
Yeah, no kidding, right?
Depressing thing to say.
Just riffing on the our human, our tendencies and our culture and ourselves sort of directing how we use technology. It's pretty common where I live when people buy like a plot of land and they want to build a house to be like, well, I got to clear out all those trees first, and they'll just like get rid of all the trees and then they'll build a house. You could incentivize not doing that, sort of like how we do like tax credits for right now. There's tax credits for buying an electric car just because that's something that was deemed something worth doing, without getting into the politics of that. But you could do that for small stuff too, to sort of change how people think about, hey, if you don't wipe out all your trees just to plant some more decorative ones, you could, that's where like tokenization of assets gets interesting to me, because everything's an asset potentially. So you could tokenize your trees, and as long as you keep them around and you don't just knock them down all willy-nilly, maybe you get some sort of tax credit for that to influence how we sort of go about our planning anyway for infrastructure and building and expanding, human growth on Earth and that kind of thing, doing it differently.
Or even, Dave, just to add on to that, like a private charity could set up a situation where if you do that, so if you don't like playing with the tax system, or you're not a fan of larger government,
it definitely doesn't have to come from
enterprise.
it could be anybody. Yeah, I was just using the example. It's the first thing I could think of is like, well, I don't know, electric cars incentive, but that sort of incentive for not I don't know, making it
a loyalty program for nature.
The aquifer thing, the pumping of water, I don't know right now how to address that. That seems like, because like I'm in Florida and we have sinkholes and people's houses falling into the ground because there's big orifices opening up below them because Nestle's pumping out all the water. And I don't know. I don't have a solution for that. But it does seem like we could tokenize everything, like hyper tokenization, and that could, like John said, at least bring some transparency into what's actually going on that we can look at objectively, to then inform our debates with each other.
Great. All right, let's go to the next question. Love it. But yeah, I think especially with this is going to come down to like us as people wanting to make these choices too. Great. We got this one's from I am who's in the chat. How's it going? Garbage in, garbage out. How can the use of blockchain ensure that accurate climate information is captured and reported so it is objective and not made into political football? I like that. I think the problem is not made into political football. You can make anything into political football. You can make anything political. You can take something that's very obvious and be like, I'm on the other side of it, and that's just how politics is going to work. So it's I don't know how much of that's realistic, but yeah, how can we? I guess this is the transparency question as well. How can we use accurate climate information that's captured and reported, so it's objective? And again, let's keep this one a little quick too. Mm-hmm. Greg, you want to hit this one?
Yeah, sure. I think the answer to this one's pretty straightforward, right? Like, if it's linkable, it's debatable on the internet, right? If you can post a link to it, you can cite it as a source. We need to make sure that the things that we're tracking, that we decide to track, right, that all of the details about the how, the why, and the wherefore of it are available. And we need to push past whoever's insistence it is. Anybody insisting that we need to summarize this for people because they're not going to know, they're going to be overwhelmed with information. We don't have information overload as a society. We have summary overload as a society. We have like way too much, encapsulation and way too many executive summaries and not enough just like raw data. And we need to have that raw data in a way that people can access it in a way that you can't debate with whether or not those numbers are real, right? You might be able to say, the temperature readings from this thing came from a GPS position that places it on the tarmac of a runway, right, at this altitude. And so the measurements that it's getting are not right from a heat standpoint, because airplanes heat up runways by this much, that or the other, and we're not correcting for that. That's one argument you can make against like the current recent temperature rises in the UK, is that they like measure exclusively on tarmacs of runways for the most part for their weather stations. These sorts of things would be knowable and debatable in a way where you can't say, well, how do you know that? These are things that blockchains can help us do. Provide us verifiable sources of meaningful information that isn't filtered by some expert who may have an agenda, right? We want to make sure that everybody has a chance to be an expert if they choose to delve into the specifics, and blockchains can make that a thing you can trust at a distance, even if you didn't help install it.
I think that also like people also don't have the time, energy, and effort to put towards reading entire pieces of data, a bunch of data points, and then interpreting and coming to their own conclusions. Also, some people really just, that's not their area of expertise.
Right. But
So
the
you
system
can
we have
show
right
them
now
stuff.
is like it doesn't let people develop expertise independent of a formal education, and and doesn't acknowledge that such a thing exists. Like I'm the kind of person who goes out and actually learns things from scratch.
Yeah.
You know, like, and I know that I'm not the only one. You know, if I thought I was the only one, I'd have a really big ego problem. But the internet's full of people who care, who are capable of learning, and who want to learn. And right now, there's too many gatekeepers in the way, and I think blockchains can kick them out of the way.
Yeah. So Dave, we'll go back around the circle to you.
Yeah. It's
do you-
actually really freaking easy. It's just a matter of whether we want to collectively do it or not. Right now, we've got people stopping it. So you can pretty darn effectively solve for garbage in, garbage out with a system of staking and bounties. So if you put a bounty on a data point, and anybody who wants to spend the time and expertise to evaluate it and disprove it can disprove it factually, then they get whatever stake was put into that data point when it was put up. And the more of a stake that a data point has, or the longer it's existed without the bounty being claimed, the more you can probably trust that piece of data, right? So that's the solution: stakes and bounties on all data. And you can do that today if we're allowed to do it, if we want to do it, and it's fucking easy.
I love how you're putting
right,
science into the gig economy.
Yeah.
Look, you're a scientist. Here's all these bounties out there. It doesn't
Yeah.
seem more exciting.
Are you
It's
good
like
at stuff?
being
Do it.
People are going to have to do something after copywriting is over with GPT.
Lisa, that's so depressing. Lisa, do you have something to add to this?
I just was going to say, kind of just piggybacking on what both of them said, but just making sure that it's apples to apples. And I guess Dave's idea of putting a bounty on it to verify that it's apples to apples that we're comparing outside of the climate. But when they're talking about right now, the inflation, and they keep changing the way they calculate inflation. You know, they used to include eggs and bacon and whatever in that calculation. And now, that's gone up too much percentage wise. So we're going to call it we're just going to say breakfast, and that could be a bowl of cereal, Yep. So making sure that we're comparing apples to apples. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I love Dave's idea of the bounties on it.
That's a great point. I like that. All right, let's go to the next question. That was the quickest one we've ever done. Last one. How to raise funds for the best technologies of cheap and clean energy for humanity, not best only for a narrow group holding capital.
Raising funds.
Yeah, raising funds for best technologies of cheap and clean energy. I feel like, does anybody have an idea that's jumping out at them? Because I've got a couple silly ones I can lead off with.
The best way to do this, right? Like, if you're worried about the influence of over concentrated capital in the hands of people who maybe have an easier path to money by manipulating power rather than like anybody who wants to be serious about about making the planet better through what they buy, right? You better hope the companies care what their customers want, right? Because if they don't, if all they care about is what the lobbyists are telling them they need to say in order to get the cronyism machine in line with what they want to have happen, right? So that they can make sure that there are no competitors and they don't have to do anything new. You want to make sure that capital is dispersed and can be concentrated by anybody. The number one thing we can do is get rid of the qualified investor rules. We got to get rid of that. And we got to make sure that people can use blockchains to crowdfund whatever the fuck they want, because there's this weird thing in U.S. securities law, and it's out there today. You can go listen to Gary Gensler yesterday talk about it, where they think they need to fucking patronize regular people because the rules were invented in the 1920s when, like more than half the nation was still illiterate or something, right? Everybody, for the most part, is capable enough to understand that putting their money into something makes it grow. And if the only people who are allowed to put forward ideas are people who already have lots of money, which is the current rule, then we're going to have that. And we could be using blockchains right now. We could have the ICO boom that never ended. if we could get the regulatory prevention mechanism that stops you from regular people from investing in startups out the door, like we could kick that to the curb. There would be no problem with funding new amazing things that actually get done. The problem is the rules there that are supposedly there to protect you, but they're really there to protect power.
Lisa, what do you think?
ICANN is working on that. If you're interested in getting behind a group to help get rid of those limitations that Greg's talking about, you can check that out. I think it's ICANN.org or ICANN.com. I'm not sure, but they're doing some good stuff and fighting back against SEC regulations. I don't know about getting funding. How to raise funds is his question for the best technologies for cheap, clean energy. I mean, I think if an idea is a good idea, and the people that hold the funds are interested in that, then they're going to be drawn to that. So I guess you have to know if you're looking at raising funds for a project and these are the goals, then you need to look at your audience, make sure that's who you're talking to or who you're pitching to.
All right, Dave. How do we get money for cheap, clean stuff?
Yeah, we're up against time, so I'll just keep it short and sweet. As a veteran, this is something that truthfully makes me embarrassed and ashamed and depressed about the way that things are going in this country. I spent a lot of time not thinking it was going to go this way, but the answer simply is that there's a lot of ways to do it. You're just not allowed to do it unless you're an oligarch or an elite or in the club or know somebody who is. So there's the real answer is like, yeah, we can do it and it's effective. We just only some people are allowed to do it. So
right.
That's where we're at.
So we got to give out more membership club.
Get rid of the fucking
Make sure
clubs.
Gary gets his first, and then you're allowed.
All right, sounds good. All right, so that was our last question. We have like a couple minutes, so I was curious if you guys want to like. This is kind of like a heavier topic too. I feel we were like everything kind of just sucks, and I hope we can make it better. So I kind of wanted to play a really quick, fun game with you guys if you're up for it. We're gonna play a game called Change My View. If we want to pull that one up, this is to honor the new Change My View layer that just launched, where you can go in there and put in your opinion and have somebody yell at you about how you're wrong. But this one's gonna be a little different. This is gonna be our World Blockchain Change My View Climate Edition. Okay, and the way this game works is I didn't do it. The way this game works is that I'm gonna give you a picture of a place and you have to tell me where it is. Okay, this is the GeoGuessr version of this. I figured Dave would love this, and I hope everybody else loves it and enjoys it. And then after this, you can go check us out over in Twitter Spaces, where we'll be talking current events, and rehashing all the weird things we did this show, and hope you enjoyed it. So let's get into the game really quick. Where do we think this is?
Vegas.
You think it's Vegas?
Right.
It looks Vegas-y.
It's very.
I'm going to go
Vegas-y.
with Oklahoma.
It is Las Vegas, baby. Yeah. It is adult Disney World. That's where that is. This is the picture from Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas.
Oh, okay.
This is a more current picture of Las Vegas.
There's a motel in Oklahoma with a very similar sign.
I don't know where Greg's hanging out in Oklahoma.
Oh, it's like close to the border between Texas
Route
and
66.
Yep,
That's Japan.
there.
This is Japan?
That's Japan.
Or
it's Asian. It's got a
the
looks like a cherry blossom and then the architecture style over there. I think it's
Asian. That's probably Kyoto.
So this is
Thailand.
That was just a sepia picture of one that was posted by Derox.
Nice, cool.
It's pretty
Yeah,
picture.
this is the oldest cherry blossom tree in Japan.
Called it.
There it is. I am had a Kyoto, I guess. Oh no, that's wrong. It's not there. You had it wrong. It's not in Kyoto. Great. So this is the oldest cherry blossom tree in Japan. Where is this?
Stark Industries.
That is Los Angeles, right?
Is it Manhattan with like some CG over it? I'm going with Manhattan.
This is Starker Avengers Towers in New York, New York.
Yep.
Great. I love that one. I think I can actually see the building that it's based off of from my apartment. It's kind of cool.
Nice.
Cool. And where is this? It's a
Where is
nice,
that?
pretty view.
That's beautiful. Canada?
That looks
No
like.
idea.
That
I'm
looks
gonna
like.
go with Appalachia, somewhere in Appalachia.
Yeah, I'm gonna say West Virginia.
All of you are completely wrong. It is
Portugal.
It is
Okay.
in Portugal. And this is the
Nice.
same picture from 2021 and 2022.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah, they kind of had a really big drought that happened.
April versus January, though. Not the same month.
Yeah, but also
amazing.
I don't think that's a lot of water that's missing.
Yeah.
All right, we're just gonna go to the
But
next
there's
one.
also dams and lock systems and all that kind of stuff. I mean, that's where, is it manipulated or by man, or is that from nature?
There was a big drought that happened that year. Is what it was. I looked up
Was
the
it
past about it.
manipulated?
There actually was an evil doctor. Dr. Evil was there and he had a weather
Yeah.
machine.
Were they sending the snow runoff into the ocean like they are in California,
That's
or
what they
is it
did.
legitimate?
Who knows?
So where is this?
This is
Any
in
idea?
Washington State. This
Yeah,
is
or
Redwood Forest.
Oregon or something.
It's pretty redwoody to me. Yeah, California, Washington, Oregon, somewhere up there.
I will say all of you are wrong. This is the
Ah!
forest moon of Endor.
where was it filmed?
This is the forest moon of Endor, which is
Awesome.
actually I think it's like Grizzly Park, California is where it was shot.
Oh, cool.
But that was the forest moon of Endor.
Real
All right,
scum.
next one. Where is this?
That is a
On-
synthwave album on YouTube.
That is also the start of the video that Prison Planet uses, or the intro video for Prison Planet.
Is it the Tron universe?
Lisa had it correct. It is Tron.
Ah.
It is but that is the grid from 1982 and this is what 2010 looked like. Very, very different feel. All right. And that was the last one.
Cool.
Sweet. That's
Nice.
all I made. Yeah, good job. You guys did all right. Gotta catch up on a couple things, but it'll be okay. There you go.
Thanks for that.
I
John.
am
That was
for
cool.
got every single one wrong except for one. So we'll be making fun of you on Coffee with Den, 9 a.m. on Wednesdays. Yeah. Let's see here. All right, I'm only 2 minutes over. I made one more. That was really fun.
No, we got to go. It's actually
gotta go?
12:06, and the spaces is 12:05.
To be fair, I can just
And
keep
we
going
haven't
as long
done
as I
any
want.
outros.
Yeah, but this is too fun. I love these. All right. All right. Yeah, so we'll outro here then. Thank you so much for joining us for World Blockchain Roundtable. That has been us. I'd like to thank my panel again, Distant Dave, Greg from Rivet, and Litecoin Lisa. Thank you so much for joining me and joining World Blockchain Roundtable again this week, like every week. Next week's theme is going to be the fall of stablecoins, which I think, Dave, did you suggest that one?
I don't
you
think
were
so.
just
I voted
excited
for it
by
though.
You were just excited by it. That's what it was.
Yeah.
So yeah, join us next week for the fall of stablecoin. Don't forget that you can share this episode. The more you share, the more our hosts and topic contributors will get. Like, share, subscribe. We'll see you on Twitter after this. And I'm going to give everybody time to plug something. Dave, if you want to plug something really quick, go for it.
Yeah, I wrote an original article with some thoughts on World War III on Den this morning over in the current thing layer. So go check that out.
Nice.
I like how you, in the current things layer, you put an article about World War III.
World War III, the third
in
act.
my head you said World War II. Got it.
Yeah.
So really, that's future things. So all right.
Depends.
Yeah.
Is
I
it
guess
though?
depends.
Yeah.
Okay.
Greg, what do you got?
All right. So I'm just going to leave you guys with a thought. If we always live in the present and we're always in the moment, there wouldn't be music, because over time, a song is revealed, and you have to have the past and the future in order for music to exist. So stop living in the present and start living in the now, as if there is no such thing as time. Otherwise, you won't hear any songs in your head.
Okay, that's
I'll have to-
beautiful.
Great,
break
Lisa.
that down.
Let us know about the
I'm
things
just
happening.
gonna really quick. What's important to me in my world right now is every year we honor my daughter that passed away when she was 7 from cancer, and we do that by celebrating her life and with friends, family, loved ones, and we are going to be fundraising to support another crypto mom in the community that's going through cancer treatments right now. So get to Oklahoma City, buy your Team Mighty ticket. We've got Big Swear, Bitcoin Ben, Johnny Litecoin, all little old me will be there, and a bunch of other great people that are there wanting community and freedom and to support each other. So we're going to have a great time. So hopefully you guys can join us. Get your tickets at litecoinlisa.net.
There you go. Go to litecoinlisa.net to get those tickets. Thank you so much again for joining me and for joining for being on World Blockchain Roundtable, as you always are. I'm the new one here. Yeah, and thank you. Yeah, go plant a tree or something today just to feel better about the slowly dissolving world we live in. Thanks, and have a good day, everybody. And join us over on Twitter in the Twitter Spaces. It'll be in the comments section, or you can find it on
Dragon Chain's Twitter channel will be hosting it.
Dragon Chain's Twitter channel. There it is. Bye.